Well, my name is Helen Rucker Buis. That's my name.
Okay. And what was your maiden name? What was your birth name?
Rucker,
Rucker?
mm-hmm.
And where were you born and raised at?
North Carolina.
Right.
And I say it that way because it was back in the hills of North Carolina. I don't even know what they call the place. Mm-hmm.
How old were you when you come over to Tennessee?
Huh?
How old were you when you come to Tennessee?
Oh, I guess when I come to Tennessee, about 6 years old, I guess, because my mother and father were born in North, they were all born in North Carolina, all the children except me, and I'm not the oldest. They got married up there and had my brother, and then they moved to Tennessee, and I was born down here. And then I guess they got excited. They moved back to North Carolina. So the rest of them was born in North Carolina.
Okay. Do you remember anything about your time in North Carolina?
Not too much. I remember the place where I was born. I mean, it was just country. My grandfather worked on a farm, so, you know, you're just country, how you said. And it was far from anybody else. I remember the first train, they talked about a train was coming. They knew that a train was coming through. So we begged Mom and Dad to let us go see the train. And we lived so far and down so low, we had to go up, it was like a mountain, and we had to lead the little ones, the ones that was young, a couple of them was younger. We had to carry them and pull them, get them up top of that, what they called a hill, I call it a mountain. We got up there and you could stand on top of it and see the train go through. And when the train went through, it just looked like a big black worm going through with smoke, because we were so far from it up there, looking down. It looked just like a big black worm or snake or something going along. That's how well we could see the train. That's how far we was back. And I guess you don't want to hear all that.
Yeah, I do.
Huh?
Yeah, I do.
But anyway, we made it back to the house, and where we lived, down kind of from the house was a creek that was close to the water. If you went into town, you got nobody anyway went to town, but sometimes they had to go to the grocery store or something. You had to walk, you had to go across it was a river. Of course, it wasn't a big, wide river, but they had a bridge. You walked across it on a bridge that kind of a wooden bridge, something down as you went across. And I remember I was scared to death of it. I think I crossed it twice, and then Mama and them couldn't get me across it no more. But we lived up there. I don't know how many years. But one day my grandfather came in and said we was moving to Tennessee. And us I think two of us might have been to school, because it wasn't no school, but we didn't know what Tennessee was. And we all got wondering about going to Tennessee. What is Tennessee? And we thought about was it like the Indians, or was the people look like us? We didn't know nothing about Tennessee. So us kids really got excited about moving to Tennessee. And finally it got time to go, and they started packing up, getting ready to come. And they packed what furniture, I think they might have had 2 or 3 pieces, in a wagon. They packed all that in a wagon, and they had 2 horses. And that was what they brought the furniture to Morristown in. The rest of us, that was my mother and the younger children. We come on the train. And of course, everybody was scared to death getting on a train or anything. But that's how we come to Tennessee. And I can remember my grandfather loading it up and putting two of his oldest sons on to drive the wagon. And he'd tell them how. I said, now when you go through a creek, be sure and drive through it, so that'll keep the wheels on the wagon wet, so the rims won't run out. And he told me how fast to come to Tennessee. But we beat them, the train beat them here, but they made it all right. But it sounds crazy to me now to think about coming down that mountain and getting into Tennessee. But we moved to then what was in Morristown was known as Raytown. That was where the poor people lived. I guess all of them lived because it looked like they was all there. And that's where we moved there. And my grandfather moved on this man's farm. I think I remember his name was Thompson, because it's Thompson Creek up from Pineville, which don't have nothing to do with it. But anyhow, we lived there, and there was a church and a school, and we went to school at the church in the same building as usual. And we lived there for, I don't know how many years, not many years, till my dad moved to what we call Jaybird, where the city where they live now, where my kinfolks live now in Jaybird. Anyhow, we moved up there, and when my grandfather, when he got here with the children, they home place they was up there. They moved up there. So we all kind of ended up in the same place again, but we had to go to school. And we had to walk about 3 miles to school, because it was out of Jaybird to what they call now Pineville, where Miller Boyd sits now. I don't know where you want me to go into about the school.
Well, tell me about who's your grandfather? What's your grandfather's name?
My grandfather's name was Robert Bowditch. Everybody called him Uncle Bob, and he was a smart man. I don't know what he was what you call veterinarian. Anybody's cattle got sick or anything like that anywhere, even before we left North Carolina, they'd come get him, and he took care of them. And never went to school a day in his life. I don't know where he learned all this at. But when he came to Morristown, he still did that. He did it up as long as he wasn't too old to get around. They'd come and get him. And then hog killing time, people would gather once by, they'd go get Uncle Bob to take, they'd kill the hogs one day and lay them out that night, and he'd go back the next day and cut them up from them. He could do all that. He was a smart man.
What about your grandma?
My grandmother, she stayed at home. She didn't work away from the house. Let back in, they washed for people or something like that. But she was a kind of a quiet woman.
What was her name?
Lucille.
Lucille. You know what her maiden name is?
Bowditch. And before she married Bowditch, she was a Ray.
She was a Ray.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Good. Do you know where are your grandparents buried at?
Huh?
Where are your grandparents buried at?
They're both buried in Morristown. They're buried in Morristown.
Do you know the cemetery?
No. No, I can't remember.
City cemetery?
I don't know. I didn't know my grandfather, but I knew my grandmother, because she lived with us a lot off and on. She lived in North Carolina, and we were down here, so she'd come once a year. She'd come down to see us, and of course she had two other sons living down here too. But that's all I know about him. I didn't know my grandfather at all, but I knew her.
What about your parents? Who were they?
Isaac and Ethel. Isaac and Ethel. That was my parents. Yep. My mama was a hard-working woman, and my dad worked hard to stay away from work. So he was a hard worker too. So they were good people.
What was your mom's maiden name?
Bowditch.
Yeah.
She was a Bowditch before she married a Rucker.
And where was your dad from?
Where did he work?
No, where was he from?
Oh, he was from North Carolina.
North Carolina.
You see, they all was in North Carolina before they came to Tennessee, so that was home. They all was born and raised up there.
Okay. Did your parents go to school?
No.
Where did you go to school? Pineville, and then?
Well, I went to Morristown School when I got here, then I went about part of a year in college, Morristown College. Rest of it I spent in Morristown. I tell you, school I have to get to Pineville before I can tell you about the school, because we went to school in Pineville. And that's where we walked the 3 or 4 miles to school, was in Pineville. And Pineville is between Russellville and Morristown. It was just it was a strange place, Pineville was. It was just a settlement of people. And I never could understand why, and I don't know how it was done, but they lived in a circle. They had not a little circle, a big circle, like you was a block or going around a block. You went around, the houses was around this circle, and there was one house in the little circle set up on the hill. That was the McGinnis's. They lived up there by themselves, and the rest of them was around that circle. Everyone lived around the circle. And then the church was up on the hill, and it was a Methodist church. When we moved there, everybody was going. There weren't many people, but everybody went to the Methodist church. And we went to school in the church building. They went to school, and we went to church on Sunday and school through the week, trying to get close enough to that pot-bellied stove to stay warm because it was cold. It was rough. It was bad. But we went to school. But you know what's strange? I think about it today. I hear children saying they didn't go to school or something. We went to school if it was snow knee-deep. We went to school. It wasn't no such day as you stay home and make no excuse. We went to school. So we went to school up there in the Methodist church. And the Methodist church sat high off the ground. Down on the lower side of it, you could drive your car under it, but the back side sat on the ground. And it was a tall, up on a hill. And people told, when we first went there, the people that lived there said it was what you call hanged. You see ghosts around it. I never thought about it. So one night they had the Christmas program, school Christmas program, and we was in the play, me and my brother. So my mama took us to church. It was in the church that night. And we walked through the yard to the church, and there was these trees with these big leaves. And my mom said, I thought these were pine trees. She said, look at the leaves on them trees. And we saw them there, just like oak or something, big leaves. And the next morning, we went to school, and there was the pine trees. Now, I ain't saying it was hanging out, I just seen that. But now, that's Pineville for you. It was a strange place. It really was a strange place. But there was the leaves where and the, was it WPA, is that what they call it, that first started giving county schools where they could have something to eat or something, because county, they didn't do nothing for us. But anyhow, they got this food, and they sent it, it was one thing, they called it hash, it was soup or something. And a lady lived down below the school, she cooked it. Lula Buis, she cooked that food, that soup for us. And somebody have to go get it and bring it to school every day. That's the only way. You had to bring your bread from it. You had to carry that bread to school, or you didn't have no bread. You had to furnish your own cup to put it in when you got there. That's the way that's the only way furnished us with that. They called it hash, I call it soup. But we had that for a while. That was school. But then people got smart out of it. The people that didn't go to school got thinking about it or something, and they decided we needed a school. So we ended up with a school building, white school building, with a white school building. And we had teachers. My first teacher was Bonnie Lebo, and she was a beautiful woman, but she was tough. She didn't take no stuff. Because then there was people going to school that were grown, it wasn't, all of them wasn't children, they were grown. They had to fight for themselves, because I don't know at the times they had them fights at school, children have to run hide while the teacher fought with the students. But that's what we had to go through with. And so they had built another little school. We ended up in Miller Boyd, which was, the building is still there if you want to see it. Beautiful brick building. And I wrote a note to the teachers the day the children come home when the school was open, and I got it somewhere. But anyhow, it's been in the paper, and it come out and got in the paper about 2 months ago. About my letter, I wrote that school. I didn't know it. I guess I got it with me. I don't know. But this letter, all I done was write and tell when I wrote to the superintendent and told him about children went to got in school now, proud they was of it. But it kind of went haywire. I don't know where I got it. Yeah, I think, yeah. I'll let you read it. You can't read it now. It's so tight you can't see it. I mean, you probably could see part of it. Anyhow, we were in going to Miller Boyd, and then as they put us in Miller Boyd school, the church people decided they wanted a Baptist church, so they built a church. So we had a church, 2 churches, and we went to go to school. We had some people that went to school that was rough because they were grown, and you would be surprised how, I won't say ignorant, but how mean they could be. If they was mean to the children, they was mean to the teachers, but you had to stay in there because I started, we went to school. But well, most of it, I look at it now in my class, by then it was about 13, and there's only one living today, and that's me. I can't point out any of the children that were in school when I was there. So the good Lord's been good to me. because there's so many of them. There was a bunch of those children, because people had big groups of children there. But I can't find them now there. When I sit down sometimes and try to remember all of them, you know. And one of them passed away not too long ago, Miss Margaret Bowman Rucker. She was my sister-in-law. But she was one. I can't think of a one now that went to school when I went to school up there. But we had a hard time, but we stayed in there.
Do you remember anybody that you went to church with when you was growing up? Anybody that you went to church with?
I'm trying to think.
The family names?
I don't know would there be Shirley? I can't think of none. Because it would have been Margaret's age. I can't think of that much good. My brothers went to school with me, but both of them were dead. So
tell me about your siblings. Do you have brothers and sisters, or just?
About my brothers, my oldest brother was a brick mason. He built houses. From Jefferson City, I forget. From Jefferson City back to Morristown, about anywhere you go, you find a house that Mr. Rucker built, because he stayed busy all the time. He built, and he was good because people kept getting him. He built the church, most of it, or directed it, where we are now. And my other brother, Roy, I forgot, what did Roy do? Roy was, he worked, but I mean just worked. But Charles was the one that was the busy one in my family. My brother, I had brother Charles and Roy and Earl. Earl was a hard worker too, and Lee. And Lee's still living. That's my youngest brother. I still got a brother living. Mm-hmm. And I just had one sister, and I hear you didn't talk to her. Oh.
What else do you remember about growing up?
Most of what I remember about growing up was after I got up a good size, because when I was growing up, they kept you so busy you didn't remember too much, or you just worked, and that was all. Go to school and you worked and did what you're supposed to do. But I worked hard, and I worked more jobs than one. I used to do housework. Of course, that's what all black women had to do. That was it back then. And I ended up being an interior decorator, and I love telling people I was one in the biggest store in Morristown. And if you don't believe it, remember Prater's furniture store. I did. I closed it out for him when it was time to close. I worked hard in there too. So, but I could do that, and things I liked to do was sew. I could take a needle, and that was life for me. I sewed. One time I made men ties. I don't know how many ties I sewed. And the richest man in Morristown wore my ties, and he bragged about it. And I made ties. We had, back when it came out, the guy Roots, the year that Roots came out, we had African Appalachia, Sammy Nicely, Lenny. Oh, we had a time. We had programs that people would pack Rose Center to see them. I wrote the story of Harriet Tubman and played her part in Rose Center, and people couldn't get in. We just really had a time. And we had the African wedding and I made the clothes. I made the all of them. I just love to sew. I could look at something and see it, and I could make it. I don't know. I guess the Lord just blessed me with that talent, but I could do it. I don't care how tough it looked or how fancy. If I got a good look at it, I could make it. So I made clothes. I made all the African clothes, and we had the African wedding, and it was so much prettier than the one, and I'm bragging, y'all, that they had in Knoxville. In Knoxville, the clothes, they had bought the clothes and ordered the clothes and tried to find them where they could get them. I made them, and we got the credit for having the best wedding. We had a beautiful wedding, but I just like to sew them. Now I'd like to sew. That's one thing that bothers me about where I live now. They won't let you have a needle, so I can't sew. But I love to sew.
Well, tell me more about your work with Africa to Appalachia.
Oh well, we had, oh my goodness, we had more plays, and we had a play just about every month, but in between that, on a Sunday, we'd usually have something going on. We had everybody that we taught the people, got the people to doing work, and so we could have say everybody had their own table where they made their stuff, and we could have a house full of people come and see what we had. We really worked hard, but we could do it, and we did it. And if you don't believe that, you can go back and ask Lenny. She was right in there too.
Well, do you have any stories you want to share about Sammy?
Well, Lord, there's so many stories about Sammy. I better leave Sammy alone. Me and Sammy he was always telling something about me, and I was always telling something about him because he was good, and he had a hard time, but he made it. And if we got ready to present a program, if we needed, we'd call Sammy, and he'd come, and he'd stay right there and work with us. And Rose Center was such an important place, but Sammy could get it. Anytime we needed the building, all we had to do was tell Sammy, and he'd call them, and they'd open it up for Sammy. But we worked together with Sammy a lot.
So tell me about your church life. So you attend Bewley's, right?
No, I go to Mount Olive. My name's at Mount Olive, let me put it that way, yeah. Okay. Back, I can't remember what year it was, but I went to what they call the Bethel Association. That's the churches, all churches, so I went with my mom. I don't know how come me to go. I went with Mama that day, and the president of the women's department was sick, and she couldn't be there. She had been sick a long time. They were trying to get somebody to take the office, and they couldn't get nobody to take the office. All them women, there was about 30 or 35 women in the group or more, because all the churches was represented. And somehow or another, Mama and Miss Summers, that's her name, Miss Summers, talked them into putting me in that office, and I ended up being president of the women's department in Bethel District. And I held that office for 8 years, and I'm telling you, it's the hardest work I believe I ever done. And I hope the Lord was thankful, proud of me, because I did my best. I had to be at a church every Sunday, just about it. One church to the other. I spoke in every church in Jefferson City, Kingsport, Knoxville, North Carolina. I don't know. It just kept me busy, but I did it. And I said, one day I said, well, if I can talk for everybody else, I can talk for myself. And I decided to write a poem. I don't remember which one it was now, but I wrote it. And I learned it, and it turned out pretty good, so I decided to do another one. So I got on the kick of reciting poetry. It wasn't poems, it was, I don't know what you call them, but some of them was almost an hour long. But the churches caught on to it, they kept me busy. I was about, every church had a program, they'd call me and I'd get up and say a prayer. I could say them and it didn't bother me at all, and I didn't forget nothing. And now I can hardly remember my name yesterday. But I could say a poem. Let me say you one real quick. This old man went to meeting on a day that was bright and fair. His limbs were old and tottering, and he found it hard to travel there. But he had a hunger for the gospel, so he trudged the dreary way, though the road was hot and dusty beneath the summer's burning ray. And by he reached that building. To his soul it was a holy place, and he paused to wipe the sweat from his tired old wrinkled face. But then he looked around bewildered, for the bell did not toll, and the doors were shut and bolted, and he did not see a soul. So he leaned upon his crutches and he said, "Oh, what could this mean?" And he looked up around him, it was all like a dream. But then he saw a little notice tacked up on that meeting door, and he limped along to read it, and he read it over and over. As the old man read the notice, oh, it made his spirits burn. Pastor, absent, on vacation, and church is closed till he returns. So he staggered slowly backwards and he sat down to think, for his soul was stirred within him, and he thought his heart would sing. Why, when I first joined the meeting, oh, it was many years ago, preachers traveled on the circuit through the heat and through the snow. And if they got their clothes and victuals, with a little cash they ever got, but they said nothing about a vacation, but were happy with their lot. Now, should the preacher close the church just to take a little rest, why, it would be the height of nonsense, and old Satan would distress. Why, if the farmer closed his farm just to take a little rest, why, his animals would be hungry, and there would be a great distress. So I tell you, it's happy to think that just because of today, preachers travel on the circuit and get along as best they may. Did anybody ever hear it happen? Ever heard it tell? Satan taking him a vacation and shutting up the doors of hell? Oh, what is? I have no answer. But my soul within is stirred, because I have walked these dusty highways just to hear the gospel word. But the preacher, he's out traveling, meeting doors done closed. I confess it's oh so trying, hard indeed to keep composed. Do you ever say what happened? And ever wonder why, when you travel to that mansion higher in the sky, I wondered when I reached that valley over on that other shore, will I see a little notice tacked upon the meeting door, telling me mid dreadful silence, written words that cut and burn, Jesus absent on vacation, and heaven's closed till he returns. I quit.
That's beautiful.
That's a short one.
That's real short. That's beautiful.
But as I was going to tell you about the joining association, I worked with those women for 8 years. And when I look at women today, I wonder where those women are. I can go through Morristown and I can't find them, just like I can't find my people that I worked with back then. So I know the Lord must be keeping me here for something. I don't know. But I ask y'all to pray for me that I'll find out before I leave here. Because if I live, and Neoma keeps writing calendars, on the 10th of May, I'll be 100 years old. Because I was born in 1925.
That was the AME Zion circuit you was on?
Oh, no.
Methodist.
The Bethel District Association.
Baptist.
Uh-huh.
Okay, okay. So it was Baptist Association.
Yeah.
Okay. Is there any one of them churches when you were traveling that circuit that sticks out to you?
Well, you know, all of them. I mean, the Methodists, the Holiness, all of them. I've been to all their church, worked with all their churches. I've worked with all of them.
So you went to a couple of years at Morristown College.
Yeah, I know. Made that first year.
First year. Okay. So eventually you got married.
Yeah.
So tell me about that fella.
Did I leave out the wedding? I ran off and got married when I was between 15 and 16. I sure did.
What was his name?
Hmm.
What was his name?
Well, I did, and I never will forget. We went to the courthouse to get the license, and I looked out down the hall, and I seen this woman come around the corner with a coat on like my mom, and I thought it was Mom, and I was ready to get out. I was ready to get out of there, but I stayed. I was married for, we were married for 60 years, I guess, 60-some odd years.
What was his name?
William.
William?
Yeah, everybody called him Bill. Bill Buis. He was a truck driver.
And where was he from?
Tazewell. Yeah, please don't ask me about that. I can't tell you that much about his people because they lived in Tazewell and I lived over here. But let's see. Most of the men in that family was, the older men was preachers. It was a whole lot of people in Tazewell. I don't even know. They like everywhere else. A lot of them's gone, but there's some still there. But they were good people. Rock of Ages moved from Tazewell when they had to move their church or something. It ended up, Rock of Ages was lost. Most of them were in Tazewell.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm.
So, tell me about your married life, your home life.
I was married. Well, most of it I worked. Most of it, all I was telling you that I did. I was married then. So. But we lived on Liberty Hill Road for a long time. Then we moved to Jaybird up to the city with the kin folks. And that's where my house was sold up there about 2 months ago. And that ends me in Jaybird.
And you had children.
Yeah, there's this. Well, 2 of them.
So tell me about your children.
Well, now, what do you want me to tell you about? All my kids, all my children, Neoma there graduated from Walter, I'm not graduated, she retired from Walter State.
27 years ago.
There she is, she can speak for herself. Betty is
She retired 2 years ago.
Betty's worked all her life. She can do anything and cook. Oh my Lord, don't take her towards the kitchen, 'cause she can mess up some food. She liked to cook. I never did like to cook, but Betty likes to cook. My mama was a cook, and Betty got Mama's recipes. I didn't. My oldest son died in the Air Force. He was in the Air Force when he died. And I got my younger son, little rascal. He's not little anymore. He's an old man, but he's here. I had 2 boys and 4 girls. So that my youngest girl lives in Greensboro, North Carolina. And the rest of them are right here in Morristown. So
40. Is there anything I'm forgetting to ask?
I sure hope not.
And tell them about those rugs you make, those
Rugs.
Braided rugs. That's a big deal. I braided the rugs. Yeah, I made them. You just take a string and you keep on plaiting it like her, and then you sew it together, and you got if you do it right, you got a beautiful rug. That's all I can tell you about it.
use that big old needle.
Oh, of course you had to have a needle. That's the reason I ain't making none now where I'm at, because they won't give me a needle.
I know it. I'm sorry.
I don't know why. Somebody must have did something to somebody with a needle, but we're not allowed to have a needle. Scissors.
Something about when she recited that poem a while ago, she neglected to tell you she at one time was a prolific writer. I'm serious. She has and the things that she wrote, I have in the process now of trying to put them together. At some point, I hope to have them in a book. But at this point, I have gotten close to 200 of them typed.
Okay.
So, just it's the poems and the messages that she delivered into different churches or something like that she wrote down that she held on to. So we're trying to get that put together.
What do you think doing the women's work in the church, is that the thing that kind of sets you forward writing, wanting to write these things out?
Yeah, it did, because when I in the association part, I had to write my own thing, because I had to have not a sermon, but a speech just about every Sunday, because we wasn't at this church, it was the next one. And sometimes they'd send for from out of town, and you'd have to really have them. And I have even talked to the churches here in Marshall. A big church that sits on the corner of Cumberland and the Methodist churches. I've been there, and First Baptist. Let me see. And what is the little church that sits across the street from? It sits right behind, Baptist is over here, and it sits across. Huh? I can't even think of the name of it. I've been there. I don't know.
Like First Presbyterian or something. Yeah. When you talked about North Carolina, was that Mars Hill?
Yeah, in Mars
It was
Hill.
Mars Hill, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, Mars Hill. Mm.